Yo, what's going on? I know you can't answer that. In this podcast, in this episode, I'm going to share with you why you stutter. I've never ever gone this deep in a YouTube video. This is going to be the most impactful video on stuttering you have ever seen or listened to. That is my promise, because I'm going in deep. But since I'm going in deep and I'll be sharing this with you, you must also do something for me. And that is, do not have any distraction on right now. Do not be texting someone back. Do not be rushing to go through this. Have time set aside where the only reason you're alive right now in your brain is to watch this. This is your whole existence came up to this moment. Because I promise you, if you give yourself the time, this will hit your core and resonate with you of like, oh, fuck, this is it. And when you realize this is it, you will realize where you need to work on, what you need to do if you wish to be free from stuttering. So with that being said, let's get into it. If you're watching this or listening to this on Spotify, I'm sorry. It's not going to be as good because I'll be drawing a lot of shit. And it's just going to be the best if you watch this on YouTube just for this episode. Sorry about that. But let's begin. What I always share with my clients or inside of my courses when I'm explaining what stuttering is, I make something very clear off the bat. And what I make very clear is that how is your speech when you're in a room by yourself? How is your speech when you talk to a pet? How is your speech when you talk to a newborn baby? In all of these situations, you're going to say, it's fine. I don't stutter, or I barely ever stutter in those situations unless I'm super in my head. And the very first point I always make to start this understanding of this deeper concept is that stuttering is not a speech disorder. There's no technique you need to learn if you want to speak freely. If you want to get out of your head and speak as you do in a room by yourself. There's no speech technique. You didn't forget how to speak. And an analogy that I use sometimes for this, I'll give you two, is one, say you're playing basketball. And when you play by yourself and you're shooting 3-pointers, let's say you hit 100 in a row. Somebody or you would say, you know how to shoot 3-pointers. But let's say you go into a game where you're playing against people and you cannot hit one 3-pointer. Do you have to go back and practice your 3-point shots because you don't know how to shoot 3-point shots? No. There's something else that got involved when someone else got involved. There's some kind of switch. There's some difference that stopped you from doing what you already know how to do. And the second analogy, the reason why I'm taking these stops, just to be completely transparent with you and doing this deep breath, is because the last couple videos that I filmed, it really drained me. Like, I felt really exhausted. Like, my eyes got super heavy. I felt very tired after like a 45-minute video. And that's not common with me. And in this video, I'm extra aware of when I'm starting to hold tension and push through this and make this more exhausting than it needs to be. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with me in videos right now. So if you see me taking big pauses, that's why. I'm going to change out of this hoodie. Give me 1 sec. All right, another analogy of this, and this is important for me to share because it gives you this understanding, is when I started to learn to dance bachata, a type of dance, for like 6 months, when I would dance with a stranger, I couldn't remember any moves. I was always locked in my head, and I was always so stiff. But when I go and practice in a room by myself, I would be fluid. I would remember the moves. I'd make up moves. I'd not care. I didn't have to learn more moves in order to learn to dance with people. I already knew how to dance. There was just something else that got in the way. And it's the same thing with speaking. You already know how to speak. There's just something that happens when another person enters the conversation. Or the person doesn't even have to be there, but something in which the person will listen to this later or see this later, or there's a possibility someone might see this, that's when the switch happens. And we're going to dive into what this switch is and what actually causes it and why this causes you to stutter, so you know what we're dealing with. All right, now I'm going to pull up my screen just to start this drawing. Let's say there's a baby here on this side, and then on this side, there is somebody you value very highly, right? So the baby you can speak to fine, but the person on this side, so let's just say it's the cool person at work, there's something that happens. There's some restriction. It's not because they're human, because the baby's human, but what's the difference? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not going to beat around the bush. The difference is the baby does not have the ability to judge you. That person at your work does. That baby does not have an identity. The baby's just going to stare at you. It's not going to know. Are you stuttering right now? Like, the dog isn't going to know. But here's the thing. The reason why I know it's the judgment that is the main difference, because there's a million differences between the baby and the person. The main reason why, or the reason why I know it's the judgment that's causing this stuttering, just like that, it's the judgment and that pressure that's causing, or that fear of judgment, I should say, is what's causing me to stiffen up while I'm dancing. And all of this is because with the more you value someone's judgment of you, the more of a tendency you have to stutter with them. That's huge. Okay? The more you value someone's judgment of you, the more of a tendency you have to stutter with them. So this gets me into drawing number 2. And drawing number 2 looks like this. On the left side, it's you. On the right side, it's your listener or whoever you're talking to. On the left bar, what you are measured up against is your self-esteem, your esteem, your perceived value that you perceive. On the right side, what this person is measured up against is the perceived awesomeness of that person. This will make sense. Another way to say perceived awesomeness is the value in which you place in their judgments. But I'll interchange those words. So let's look at the screen now. When you and your self-esteem is lower than the awesomeness of the listener, there is tension. There is tension which, if you are a person who stutters, translates into stuttering. The higher the awesomeness is of the listener, which another way to say it is the more you value this person's judgments in correlation with where your self-esteem is, or where your perceived value is. The lower your self-esteem is in comparison to the value in which you place another person's judgment of you, or another way to say it, the awesomeness of the listener, the lower you are, the higher they are, the more you tend to stutter. But if the roles are reversed here, and you and your self-esteem and your authority and your value that you feel is higher than the listener or listeners, guess what? There's no tension. As a result, when you feel like you're talking down to somebody, you're a lot more fluent. The stutter arises when you're talking up. And I'm not saying like this is it, because there's more nuances that go in. There's more nuances that go into it, and also a whole nother section of the biological factors, such as your sleep, such as your diet, such as your exercise, such as your sense of direction in life, your sense of purpose, your screen time versus being alone. Like, all of those biological factors make a huge impact on the tension in your body. But what I'm hyper focusing on right now is the thing most people are confused about. The thing that speech therapists say, here's a speech technique. Because I see you're stuttering a lot with some people, and use a speech technique with them. Instead, if we go back, that speech technique does not really address at all the issue here, because the issue actually isn't the stutter. The issue isn't the stutter. So many people think it is, And when a person who stutters comes to a speech therapist, and the speech therapist say, "What's your goals?" They say, "I want to stop stuttering." And the speech therapist says, "Cool, hop on a speech technique. Cool, here's a breathing technique. Cool, let's stop you from stuttering." But if the speech therapist went deeper and said, "Okay, say you stopped stuttering, then what? What's your life gonna look like? What's gonna be different?" Well, I would be able to speak to whoever I wanted. I wouldn't be thinking about my stutter. I wouldn't be anticipating. I wouldn't be holding back. I would feel good when I spoke. I would be able to be myself. This is what it comes down to. This is what it comes down to, because when there is this dynamic of your self-esteem being lower than the awesomeness of the listener, being yourself is extremely fucking hard. And I'll tell you why. And it's because evolving from or coming from the hunter-gatherer days, we needed to be in a tribe to survive. If we got rejected, I'm sure you've heard this a lot before, so if you have, just stick with me. If we got rejected from this tribe and kicked out, we would die from a bear or a tiger, or stepping on a thorn and getting an infection and blah, 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 blah. A million reasons. We just would not be able to survive on our own in this wilderness. So when we're in this tribe and we feel unworthy to the other members, but especially to the members we perceive as valuable, and we feel inherently unworthy, how are we going to act with these people? Because these people who are more worthy than us are perceived how we perceive them as more worthy than us, more valuable than us. It feels like they have the power to dictate if we die or not, because they have the power to kick us out of the tribe. But somebody who's lower than us, what can they do? They can't do shit. So bringing us back to this moment, when we have low self-esteem and we're in conversation with someone who we perceive as very valuable, of a high level of awesomeness, how we adapt to that is we turn into somebody we're not. We turn into somebody that tries to please them, that tries to prove ourselves, that tries to perfect or pretend. Those are the 4 P's to the stuttering state. Anytime you're in a stuttering state and you're stuttering a lot, you're doing at least one of these 4 P's: proving, pleasing, pretending, and perfecting. And that's because the difference, the self-esteem difference to the awesomeness of the listener difference, is causing you to disregard yourself, disregard your authentic self, and step into a role where you feel, I need to get this person's approval, this person's validation, this person's acceptance in order to be enough. Or back in the days, in order to survive. And we still feel that. We still emotionally feel that if we get rejected or judged by this person, we are going to die. That is how we emotionally feel, and we do not want to die. So we start pleasing. We disregard our true selves, And we start pleasing and proving and pretending and perfecting, thinking this is the way to gain their approval. We say, okay, what is it about us that we think will get us judged, that we think will make him or her think we're weird, and let's throw that all out. And guess what you throw out? You throw out the stuttering. And this I can go deep into, but just a quick cover of it is to the degree you feel like you need to conceal your stutter is to the degree that you will stutter. So if you are saying, I need to hide my stutter, you're going to stutter more. And if stuttering in your head is going to get you judged, guess what? You're going to be looking for the judgment in the person's eyes, in the person's reaction every time you stutter. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, fuck it. People always judge me when I stutter. People always think I'm weird, but that's only because what you're looking for is the threat, because you're in a survival mode trying not to get judged. So guess what you're looking for? The judgment. It's just like if you're in the woods by yourself and you see a bear and it's walking around you, a big grizzly bear. But there's a beautiful butterfly right in front of your face. Are you gonna see that butterfly? Are you gonna take in all of what the butterfly is? No, you're in fight or flight. You're looking at that fucking bear, at that potential death. You're not gonna see the butterfly in front of you. And even when that bear is gone, if you hear footsteps, you're gonna be like, oh fuck, the bear is back. And it's the same thing when you're speaking. If you're in this, I need to get their approval, their acceptance, their validation, and emotionally you feel like you need to get it to survive, guess what you're going to be paying attention to? Not dying. You're going to be looking at all the ways you could be getting judged, all the ways you could be getting rejected, and you're trying to avoid it. And this is what resonates with a lot of people who stutter. What I'm about to say next is it. When you're in a stuttering state, it feels like you're on the defensive. Like you're defending yourself. You're protecting yourself constantly. You're not being yourself, but you're trying to protect yourself. And this aligns with everything that I'm saying. And the reason why I went on this tangent at the beginning, remember I said how most people deal with this is they say, here's a speech technique to get more fluent, because that's what they think the goal is. The goal isn't the fluency. The problem isn't the stutter. The problem is the inability to be yourself. The inability to let go. Stop thinking about your stutter and just be your fucking self. Even if you stutter, even if you block, the ability to let that shit pass and still be yourself. That's the real goal. We think it's the fluency, but guess what? 99% of the world is fluent and they're fucking miserable. They're fucking miserable. Most of the world. Fluency isn't going to get you where you want. Authenticity is. Being yourself is. Everybody has a reason in their head why they can't be themselves. Oh, it's because I'm fat. Oh, it's because this. It's because this. Yours is your stutter. And they think, oh, if I just get in shape, then I'll be enough. If I just do this, then I'll be enough. If I just release this stutter, if I no longer stutter, then they'll like me. It's not true. You think it is, but it's not true. And you think it is because every time that you're on a more fluent day, you get more validation from other people. But guess what? From all the research I've done, to the years of overcoming this myself, and through helping hundreds of people do so as well, guess what? It's not because you didn't stutter, but it's because you were being more yourself without thinking, without that filter, without that tension inside of you that caused you to not stutter as much or at all, without that filter there. And guess what? Being yourself does get more acceptance, does get more validation, but it's not through taking the stutter away. That does not work that way. It's through becoming yourself, not giving a fuck if you stutter or not. The stutter just goes as a byproduct of that. But it going cannot be the goal. And there's so many reasons why it can't be the goal, but I'll just stick to this for now. So you may say, Chase, okay, then how do we do it? Again, I don't think I can get all into that. I just want to explain this major part so you understand it. And to explain that, the process in overcoming stuttering is about raising your self-esteem, raising your perceived value in your eyes, and lowering the awesomeness of the listener, lowering the weight in which you put in their judgments. Because remember, when there's the higher weight, when there's the higher weight in comparison to your own self-esteem, that's tension. That's you trying to get accepted. That's you trying to please. But when there's a lower weight, it's fine. You're free. It's about learning to judge yourself off of a different measure than how another person sees you. This is what overcoming stuttering looks like. Because right now, how you primarily feel, I'm just saying you in general, might not be you, but if you're struggling with stuttering a lot, then it's you. How you primarily feel about yourself is in the control of another person's opinion of you. And you'll always be caught in this stuttering cycle, constantly falling down, losing self-esteem, stuttering a lot, if that is the main way that you feel worth. Overcoming stuttering is about measuring yourself off of a different measure that is in your control, that is in the actions, not the outcomes. And this naturally will allow you to rise in self-worth, rise in self-esteem, and because you're not seeking this acceptance and this validation from another person, the awesomeness of this listener, the value in their judgments, because you're not trying to get it anymore, it drops. And this doesn't mean you're above the person and you're superior in every way. No, this is just a change in how you value yourself. And this is overcoming stuttering. And again, biological factors impact the tension in your body, which impact the level of stuttering. Sleep, get me with 4 hours of sleep, 3 days in a row, and talking for me is a lot more difficult. That impacts your speech so much. But this is what most people are confused about. And that's what I wanted to dive in today. So I hope you enjoyed that little explanation. So let's dive into the questions for this week's deep dive of questions. We had 4 questions come in, and let's take a look at them. All right, first question, and if you have any questions for me, whether it be about stuttering or any type of interpersonal disorder like premature ejaculation, any type of sexual dysfunction, social anxiety, or you just have a question you want to ask me or a story you want to share, please, down below there's a link which you can ask me questions and I'll answer it on the next podcast. So the first question comes from Omar. Hi Chase, I am Omar. I am almost 18 years old. I had a stutter when I was 4, and when I was 6, I stopped it, but then it came back to me 3 years ago. To this day, I don't really have a severe stutter. You may not even notice it, but I am constantly thinking about it, and I can't focus that much. With that, I do everything that I need to do, but I do it scared. So how can I overcome that? I just need to do one thing to make me just do it. If you see this, thank you in advance, and I will try to say the things I want to say because I can. So what I took from this question is that Omar says he does everything that he needs to do, but he's scared to do it. How can he overcome that? Earlier on in his question, he says, I don't stutter that much. You may not even notice it, but I'm constantly thinking about it. And this just proves my point of what I shared earlier in this, is that it doesn't matter how much you stutter. It doesn't matter if you learn a speech technique and now you stutter less. If the fear is still there to stutter, if that fear is still there to get judged, and you're not able to be yourself, nothing was worth it. Nothing was worth it. Doesn't matter if you're fluent, if you're still scared to be yourself, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be holding back, and that's the issue. The issue is the holding back of your true self. So he says he does everything that he wants to do, that he needs to do, but he's just scared to do it. I first want to say, awesome, dude. Really, really great that you are doing the things you need to do, but even though you're scared to do it. What's the first thing that comes to my mind, because this is common with people, is, so I have this saying that goes like, you have to stutter to overcome stuttering. And you have to stutter more. You have to be more open about it. And what people always respond to me, not always, but the most common argument I get back is, Chase, I stutter a lot. I stutter a lot. What do you mean I have to stutter more to overcome it? Makes no sense. And I get your point, but here's where I come in with this different thought, is one person can stutter 50 words a day, and another person can stutter 50 words a day as well, but one person moves closer to overcome it, and one person moves further away. The difference is all about where you were judging yourself. That's the main difference. So every person that I have worked with, let's just go with myself. I stuttered for the first 18 years of my life pretty fucking badly. And I wasn't getting any closer to being free. But then 18 forward, I stuttered even more at times, but I was getting more free. The difference is when I was under 18, I was trying to avoid the stutter. And because I was trying to avoid this stutter, or the reason why I was trying to avoid the stutter is because I was trying to avoid the judgment from another person, avoid that weird look. And because I was trying to avoid it, I was making myself smaller. I was tightening up, and this caused me to speak oddly and forcing and pushing through blocks, which got me more judgment, the thing I was trying to avoid in the first place. And I was only focusing on the judgment. Oh, fuck, I failed again. I stuttered. They don't like me. They think I'm weird. I failed. This is never going to work. It's because I was seeking their validation, their approval to make me feel good. In other words, if I was moving up, if I was progressing, it was based upon the outcomes. If I was it was based upon the outcomes. If I stuttered or not, that's a complete outcome to the tension in my body in this moment. Whether they think I'm cool, whether they like me, whether they validate me, whether they judge me, that's an outcome. Out of my control. Out of my control. And I was constantly using these things out of my control to dictate how I felt about myself. So I was always caught in this fear. I wasn't moving forward. But what changed when I was 18 is I started to judge myself on my actions. My value, my worthiness came internally of what was in my control. I would say to myself, okay, it doesn't fucking matter if I stutter here. Actually, I want to stutter here. I want to face that fear. My job is to just simply go into that interaction that I know I'm going to stutter in. If I do that, then that's a win. So as long as I entered, as long as I spoke, as long as I faced that fear, as long as I left my comfort zone, I felt fucking good because I accomplished the goal I wanted to accomplish, which was face that fear. So I stuttered. They looked at me weird. A million different things happened that were outside of my control, but I felt like there was a blockage there. Like that shit didn't hit me. Because what I valued, what my goal was just to go in there, go and face that fear. And I did that. So I stuttered, they judged me, but I felt fucking good inside. I felt self-respect. I felt my self-esteem rise. I felt lighter. I felt happier. And I kept doing that. My self-esteem kept growing. And that's how I lost the fear, because that fear is only there because you're trying to avoid that judgment because of how much you value the judgment of another person's opinion of you. And learning to validate yourself from your internal goals, if you took that action or not, that's everything. That allows you to let go of that fear, that allows that self-esteem to grow. That's huge, okay? Question 2. Rashid. And he asked this question inside of a group. He says, "You guys feel like you have nothing to say when you can speak. In saying that, sometimes it's hard to tell if I have a block, or if what I know is, or I don't know what to say, or if it's worth saying. With my workmates, it's very superficial, and I don't feel like it's worth saying sometimes, but most of the times I don't know what to say." So a couple things come to mind, Rashid. How I want to respond to this is first by saying that, or telling you the story of when I would have a job. So I worked at a golf course for many seasons. In the first season I was there, at the lunch table, people would always be talking, always cracking jokes, and I would sit there and think, I have nothing to say. Like, what can I add to this? This feels out of my realm of the type of conversations I usually join. Like, I really, even if I were to say something, I don't know what I would say. I would just be forcing myself to say something. And what I realized is when I felt this, like, I have nothing to say, it could be because the type of conversation they're having is something you do not align with. Like right now, if people were here and they're talking about politics, I wouldn't have anything to say. But it feels different when it's completely by choice and it's like, I do not care about that. It feels different than being at the lunch table and feeling like I want to join in, but I don't know what to say. And what I learned, it was the fear was just so high to fuck up that my brain didn't even give me anything to think to say. That filter of what would be good enough to say in this conversation was so fucking thick that my brain just basically told itself, there's nothing you can say right now that's going to be good enough. And it just didn't give me thoughts because it already felt that, it already knew that, because the fear to stutter, or the fear to say something weird, or the fear to make awkward silence was so high that no thoughts were coming to my brain. And I know this is because when I started to face that fear and I went back to the lunch table after other years have gone by and I went back to that golf course, I had shit to say. And it changed because I reduced that fear of that judgment. I reduced the awesomeness of the listeners and my self-esteem rose. So I'm guessing it's not the same as if politics were being talked right now and I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to even talk about that because I really could not care less about that. But it feels different. That choice of like, I'm not joining that feels different than being at a lunch table and like wanting to join but not having something to say and coming from that place of lack and that place of fear. And it's just because your filter is so fucking high, so fucking thick, because the fear is so strong. I'm willing to bet it's that. Let's go on to the next question. The third question comes from Lorenzo Becerra. Becerra. Not really sure how to say your last name, Lorenzo. He's 18, from Indiana, Griffith, Indiana, USA, college student. He says, how's a good way or ways to start expressing your stutter? What are some tips also to start stuttering openly? I'm so desperately wanting to, but I can't seem to take the first few steps. Awesome question, man. How to start stuttering openly. First thing that comes to mind is that, and I just want to say, man, that's fucking awesome. That's fucking awesome that the goal in your mind right now, the thing you're trying to accomplish isn't trying to stop the stutter, but trying to stutter more openly. Because the reason why that's so fucking awesome is because that's actually going to get you what you want. If you're able to stutter openly, and over time not have fear to do that, not have shame when you do that, you will be able to be yourself regardless if you're stuttering or not. And stuttering will no longer drain you. It will no longer be this weight that like every time you stutter you just get put in this forceful state that drains your energy and makes you feel like talking's not even worth it. It's so much effort. So how to start stuttering more openly? I would first say make sure your mindset's right, in which you are choosing goals that are inside of your control. All right? You're not speaking to make this person like you. Your goal is not to avoid this stutter. Your goal is not anything outside of your control. All right? The way they think of you, if you stutter or not, allow that shit to pass by. Like release control of that. But make sure the first thing, make sure your mindset's right, where your goal, where you're judging yourself off of, is in your actions. Did you go and face that fear or not? And what this does is you start to train yourself to measure your value out of things in your control, which raises your self-esteem if you simply take action and you face that fear, and it reduces the awesomeness of the listener. And why I share this first is because it's so much harder to stutter openly when you're judging yourself on how the person reacts. And you may think, oh no, that's not what I'm judging myself off of, but emotionally it may feel like that. So I would say start by starting to increase your self-respect and your self-worth and your self-esteem, and decreasing the awesomeness of the listener simply by facing fear and judging yourself off of, did I face that fear or not? Yes? Fuck yes. And feel good. Because then the tension isn't as strong. The tension to not stutter. And when that tension is not as strong, you have more space. You have more freedom to start to stutter more openly. That fear has drained. When that fear is high, I don't think I could. Even if that fear is so fucking high, I could not stutter. I could not stutter openly. It feels impossible. I have to start in environments where that difference, where their awesomeness and my self-esteem isn't at that drastic difference. It starts where it's more equal. So my brain sees it's more safe. But nonetheless, you're going to have to start to judge yourself on your actions, not the outcomes, and learn to train that. Like that's a muscle you have to train. Like your reaction every time you stutter at the beginning is going to be like, oh, fuck, that sucked. Oh, no, they probably think I'm weird. You have to train yourself to be like, hey, yo, Griffith, right? No, that's the place you're in. Lorenzo, did I take the action? What was in my control? What was in my control was if I took the action or not. Why am I judging myself on an outcome? If I stuttered, if they liked me, what they think of me, that's an outcome. Why am I judging myself on that? What was in my control? Did I take the action? Yes. Okay. And it's a training you have to do, because that reduces the fear and that gives you more space to stutter openly. And then once you have more space, you can start by doing small things first, like holding eye contact when you stutter. That might be small, that might be huge. But then like making sure you're not avoiding any words, making sure you're facing that in a great mindset that I'll share with you, that I've shared with all my clients. If you feel like you're pushing through things, is to have the intention in mind to relax the listener by the way you speak. The intention isn't to stutter openly, because that's more of like a thought-based thing, and that keeps you in your mind. But what a feeling-based thing is, when you're talking, you want to be more connected to your body, not so much to your mind, where you want to think, okay, how would I talk if my job was to relax my listener? And intuitively, you would feel like, okay, I wouldn't be pushing. I'd be accepting of myself. Like, this would just be a feeling that you would have. I would stutter like this. I would give myself space. I would allow myself to feel comfortable with it. I would give myself permission to just be myself. That's what would give the permission to the other person to relax or to be themselves. And that's a different way to think about it. That has helped me a lot and helped a lot of people. But again, I would first start with just doing things every day and facing fear every day and judging yourself on the action you take, not on any outcomes to that. And last question comes from somebody who didn't add their name in, which is great. It's cool. And he says, when we are alone, we stutter less or don't stutter at all. We just express our message freely. And stuttering is not any issue that time. But when we go outside and talk to people, we feel so much tension, tightness, resistance in the chest, neck, area, speech mechanism. Speech mechanism that we don't get the words out around others. Why this happens and what should we do in this uncomfortable moment or movement. So I answered this in this video. You're welcome. But in terms of the tension in your chest and neck, that's just common. When there's that difference, your self-esteem to the awesomeness of the listener, that's tension. That creates tension. And where you store that is different with everybody. You may store it in your chest. You may store it in your neck. You may store it in both. You may store it in your shoulders. And that's common with everyone. Like, you can feel where it is. It's different for everybody. And again, if you're asking a question like this, I wouldn't even tell you things like to focus on the tension in the moment and learn to let it go, because I can still tell that the reason why there's all this tension there is because where you are seeking your value from, seeking your enoughness from. It's not from yourself. It's from the opinion of another person. And that's why you said when you're in a room, you don't stutter. When you talk to someone else, you do. It's where you seek that from. And I would, again, just like most people here, encourage you to start judging yourself on your actions. Like, this is a conscious thought you need to ingrain inside of yourself. Judge myself on the actions, not the outcome. Judge myself on the actions, not the outcome. Oh, this person laughed at me, blah, blah, blah. Did I take the action? Yes. Like, I have so many stories of the way people would judge me and laugh at me and whatever, but I'd feel fucking great. I'd feel fucking great because I knew I faced a fear. And I knew that I desensitized myself to that judgment, that fear of judgment. I didn't die. I thought I was going to die, but I didn't die. And it made me stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where I love who I am. I fucking love who I am. Because who I am has not been built upon what I think another person thinks I should be. It's based upon what did I value? What do I value? And judging myself off the ability to act on those values. Just to go and speak to that person. Just to go and face that fear. And my self-worth has been built upon that. That feels a lot different when you're speaking to somebody, knowing who you are, and not needing any outcome from that person to feel safe, to feel good enough, because you already do. It's a lot different. Speaking, there's a lot less tension, a lot less stuttering. So with that being said, I will wrap up this episode now. It was more about people, more specifically to people who stutter. But if you have any type of social anxiety or sexual dysfunction, this is largely the same. And I've had many people with social anxieties or any type of interpersonal disorders say, like, Chase, I don't stutter, but I listen to you because you help me out so much. Because it's the same shit. And yeah, so I hope that was helpful.